There are evil people who have evil positions and want to do evil things and are doing evil things. And they are enemies. But someone like Joe Rogan isn't. And so there's nothing wrong, again, with saying, hey, you're totally wrong about this. You're way off base. Like, you should be voting for Donald Trump. You don't vote for Donald Trump, you say whatever you want about third parties and whatever, and it's your vote. And
he circled around to the exact thing that he's trying to call out. He's like, just as long as you're voting for Donald Trump, right? Which he said he's going to do. But at the end of the day, that's all we need, is that you say that you're going to vote for Donald Trump. Which he said, which is okay, except if Amber Rose does it. We don't want her, okay? She's bad. But in this case, Joe Rogan is good.
On Friday, it was reported all over social media that Joe Rogan had endorsed RFK Jr. on his podcast. And let's first listen to a clip. This is what the supposed endorsement consisted of.
That's just what they do. That's politics. They do it on the left. They do it on the right. They gaslight you. They manipulate you. They promote narratives. And the only one who's not doing that is Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
You a fan?
Yeah, I am a fan. Yeah, he's the only one that makes sense to me. He's the only one that he doesn't attack people. He attacks actions and ideas, but he's
never attacked a person. True.
He's much more reasonable and intelligent. I mean, the guy was an environmental attorney and cleaned up the East River. I mean, he's a legitimate guy. You know, before anybody started calling him an anti-vaxxer, which I thought he was too. I thought he was this nut, this like conspiracy theorist nut, until I read his book.
And then I realized HIV doesn't cause AIDS. Thanks, RFK Jr.
Read the real Anthony Fauci, and I'm like, what is... How much of this is real? Because if it's all real, this is insane. And we live in a world where we're being manipulated by these health organizations that are being paid.
See, this is the danger of I did my research, right? If you take his book at face value, read it, and you finish it, and then you're like, whoa, all these new facts, I'm absorbing them. I can't believe this. I've been lied to my whole life. Apparently HIV doesn't cause AIDS. Yeah, like you should be able to take that and then be like, oh yeah, so he's way worse than I ever thought. Or I'm going to now have to look up to see if any of the things he said here are true.
Paid by the pharmaceutical drug interests. And these pharmaceutical drug companies are pumping these products out into the population and telling us that we need them and then making insane amounts of money. And
that's also like the scary thing about people like RFK Jr. and conspiracy theorists in general is I've always said they take slivers of truth. They have to. It can't be completely based in nonsense, right? If you base your entire world premise on, and that's when the lizard people come down from Mars and da-da-da, like if that's the start, then no one's going to buy your shit. If it starts out with real factual things, such as, yes, there's a lot of problems with the pharmaceutical industry. There's a lot of problems with the way that they promote a lot of their drugs on television in America. There's a lot of problems with them spending more on advertising than they do on R&D. Like, these are real facts. These are things that people should be able to talk about. Maybe along the lines of we should be nationalizing the pharmaceutical industry, that kind of stuff. But it's never that. It's that these are bad companies. They've done bad things. And because of that, they lied to you about the vaccine. That's the like ... You know, and that's like saying that like the companies that produce gasoline and oil, they're very bad companies. But that doesn't mean if you put gasoline in your car is going to explode that day. Like the second you put gas into your car explodes because these are really bad companies, and they're evil and they've done a ton of evil shit. That first part's true. They are evil companies that have done a ton of bad shit. That also doesn't mean that putting gas in your car makes the car instantly explode, right?
then also the government is in on it, and also they share a patent with Moderna, and also they share profits, and there's $700 million, I mean, however much money was made, whatever the number is that these guys made off of these products. Like, this is, all of it is crazy.
Okay, now you may notice something about Rogan's endorsement of RFK Jr., which is that he did not endorse RFK Jr. He said nice things about him. He praised him. That's not the same thing as endorsing him. In fact, what Rogan said about RFK Jr. is no different than what he said about the guy in the past. He said all the same stuff in the past many times. There's no story here. There's nothing new. So Joe Rogan,
The story is that MAGA got so fucking mad. And I guess Joe didn't know how many of his fans at this point are conservatives or right-wingers, because holy hell, was there ever a massive backlash? And within 24 hours, he released another statement that was effectively like, I've never said that I'm endorsing RFK Jr. And I've also said that like Trump getting shot was like one of the most badass things I've ever seen in my life. Let's not get it twisted, you know, just instantly. It was like a turnaround like you've never seen before. It took him years to apologize for all the racism that he was doing towards black Americans. Comparing black neighborhoods to Planet of the Apes, the N-word compilations, all that took years and years and years for him to apologize for any of that. And that's only when it became so big that Spotify was like, you got to say something. Like, we can't just ignore all of these fucking N-word compilations that are appearing all over the internet right now. And he's like, I deeply apologize for some of the words that I've used in the past. I was either being like edgy or blah, 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 you know, just your standard boilerplate. I'm a comedian. I push boundaries kind of shit. But for this, it was like, blah, 24-hour turnaround.
has the same view of RFK Jr. today that he had last week. That's the story. Now, even if Rogan had endorsed him, even if he had said, I am officially endorsing RFK Jr. for president, it still wouldn't be a big deal. I mean, certainly nothing to get upset about. Rogan is free to prefer whatever candidate he wants, endorse whatever candidate he wants.
If he hadn't done the heel turn, this would be a very different segment. He wouldn't be sitting here being like, and that's completely fine. If you wanted to endorse him, he's endorsed him. That's all I got to say about it. Next segment. It would be like, clearly Joe Rogan doesn't understand that the stakes are higher than they've ever been, that Trump has done more to attack the pharmaceutical industry than RFK Jr. ever will. It would be a completely different segment.
Like Joe, but I'm not voting based on who Joe endorses. And he doesn't expect anyone to vote based on that. In fact, Joe's been very clear when it comes to politics or anything else that he doesn't want his audience to just go blindly believe or follow.
Well, yeah, I know, because he does not actually want to have to take responsibility for any of his opinions, beliefs, or guests that he brings on the show. So he's constantly doing that thing. Even his new stand-up special, it's a lot of like, I'm just like an alcoholic pothead. Why would you ever listen to me? Why does anyone ever listen to me? Don't take me seriously. I'm a comedian. Nothing I say really matters. You don't have to take what I say at face value. And it's like, well, when you got an audience of 11 million people, you kind of do have a responsibility, because there are people in your audience who are going to listen to some of the outrageous things you propose, and maybe they'll make health decisions based upon it, right? Like, yes, it's true. Joe Rogan did not take horse paste in order to help with his COVID symptoms. But it is true that he was taking at the time the prescribed medication for humans that was also being taken by a lot of people, maybe even some of his audience members, in the horse paste version for animals, because they don't have access to the same kind of Beverly Hills doctors that Joe Rogan does, who's just going to be like, oh, what do you need? I don't know. I've heard ivermectin's kind of cool. All right, here you go. Ivermectin for humans. There you are. What else do you want? I don't know. What else you got? Oh, tons of things. Yeah, I could give you something that actually will help you, and you can take both at once, and then you'll think that the thing that doesn't do anything to help alleviate COVID symptoms or cure COVID, ivermectin, that's the thing that's helping you. So here, monoclonal antibodies, take that. Here's ivermectin, take that too. Call it whatever you want. The kitchen sink? Sure, call it the kitchen sink. And then afterwards, you can say that you were cured and then be like, yeah, it really helped. Man, I don't know what it was. Maybe it was the monoclonal antibodies that have been shown and proven to actually help with COVID symptoms, or maybe it was the ivermectin. Well, I'll never know for sure, but one of those two things certainly did help me.
Follow whatever he says. Like, to his credit, he's always been pretty clear about that. He's just giving his own take on it. This is what I think. You guys should think for yourself. So the whole thing's a non-issue. Not an endorsement, even if it was, like, who cares? Okay.
Well, you do. You made a segment on this.
It's Joe Rogan's not a Republican. I mean, that's not, did anyone not know that? But that's not how it was treated by certain segments of the right, especially on Twitter. There was a lot of anger and outrage over this. And in fact, I found out about it because I was, maybe like other people, I saw Joe Rogan trending on Twitter, and I thought, oh, okay, like, what's the left mad about this time, right? What are they complaining about this time with what Joe Rogan said? So I clicked on it, only to find, much to my chagrin, that he was trending this time because people on the right were whining about him because of this. The account Catturd, which is an account
I am so here for every element of the Civil War, by the way. It's absolutely beautiful. And keep doing it. You know, this is the kind of stuff that's supposed to be happening during the primaries, not when you're months away and your like entire campaign is in free fall, to suddenly have these people be like, well, I don't know why we're all getting angry, but I gotta say, this Catturd guy, a little out of line, you know, very, very out of character for him. Normally politically astute, that Catturd.
Called Catturd, but it does have 2.7 million followers. That account, among others, spent all day attacking Joe. And he posted stuff like this, quote, "So I've never been a Joe Rogan fan, can't stand him. Yes, he has a popular podcast, but I've always thought he was absolutely politically dumb. He's great at figuring things out 2 years after we do. What a legend. So did it surprise me when he endorsed idiot RFK Jr. today? LOL, no. We're talking about the same effing idiot who endorsed Bernie Sanders, right? He's the podcast equivalent of a dumb blonde joke." He also called his podcast gay and low IQ and dumb blonde again. He kept going on and on about the dumb blonde thing, along with a bunch of other insults that seem to indicate that he's never listened to the podcast.
I love that he's like, he went for all these high school tier fucking insults. Yeah, it's pretty gay and blonde of him. He's like a blonde woman, but like also a gay man. Yeah. Hold on.
I mean, you could say what you want about
Cassie the Lioness, thank you. Some Bezos bucks to mix with your CAD funny money. I appreciate it.
Rogan's show, but the guy, I mean, he'll have like a 3.5 hour conversation with an astronomer or an archaeologist. Call that what you want, but low IQ and dumb blonde just don't make any sense.
This is going to surprise you, Matt. Anyone can have a conversation with anyone else. That's not an indication that they're either willing to learn. And hey, it's completely valid. There's the majority, I would say, of topics of which I am like not completely informed on, and sitting across from an astrologer or an astronomist, well, okay, maybe not an astrologer, but yeah, if I was having a conversation with someone who knew infinitely more than me, I would want to learn. That doesn't mean necessarily that I'm suddenly educated on a topic, right, or deeply educated on a topic.
There are probably no dumb blondes listening.
Yeah, with an astrologer, there's not much to learn there. Just basically, hey, what sign am I? How does this combine with my water sign and moon signals?
Joe Rogan on a regular basis. So if you're going to insult someone, at least try to make sure that your insults bear some relation to your target. Unless he's saying that Joe Rogan himself is a dumb blonde, but Rogan is a 57-year-old bald guy. So
doesn't make sense. Right? Like, why would you say that when he's not actually the thing? I'm pretty sure he doesn't suck man dick. I'm pretty sure. So he's not gay either. Why would you say he's gay? Why would you say his podcast is gay? Why would you say that he's a blonde woman when he's clearly a man who doesn't have hair? It doesn't make any sense.
I mean, no one's looking at Rogan and saying, oh, look at that dumb blonde. So I'm confused. Maybe it's because I'm a dumb blonde. I don't know. But let's not get hung up on that. Or on this one account that was attacking Rogan. This is just an example. And there were a lot of tweets like that from certain right-wingers who were very, very upset with Joe Rogan and basically swore him off as a moron and a tool because he endorsed RFK Jr., even though he did not endorse RFK Jr. And that is what was going on. So I want to say something about this.
Well, essentially, Matt is in the good graces a little bit. He's been on the Joe Rogan podcast once. I think he wants to go back. It's obviously a massive, massive platform for anyone to get. 11 million regular listeners. That is huge. The world's biggest podcast. That is huge as well. Matt Walsh is also supremely gross. And when he was on the Joe Rogan podcast is where that viral clip went of him saying something just so factually, like, fantastically wrong that he got called out in real time by Jamie, and then he had the actual like divine, you know, light of God shine on his face, and then him being like, yeah, it's not at all accurate. You're just way off. But it sounds scary. Sounds good, right? He's like, yeah, Media Matters is gonna have a field day with this one. Not going to change my personal beliefs or views. I'm going to continue to be a transphobe and just broadcast the stuff on main. But it is true that I have absolutely no idea what I'm talking about. None whatsoever.
Tonight, and I already addressed it on Twitter, but I want to repeat the same point here on the show. And that is, first of all, Joe Rogan is a powerful cultural force, one that is, at a minimum, extremely friendly to conservatives. Countless times over the years, He's
not wrong. I never thought I'd say that, but it is true. If you look at, then just break down the list of like political ideologies of his guests, they usually skew center right to right.
Platformed, as the left would like to say, right-wing voices, very right-wing voices, okay? People who are far more right-wing than the conservatives who are attacking Joe Rogan now.
Wow, this is a good clip. I mean, yeah, he's saying it out loud, just so everyone who, you know, for the people in the back who still didn't realize that Joe Rogan, the libertarian centrist, who isn't actually politically affiliated with the Democrats or the Republicans, does have a very strong slant towards the far right. That is true.
Right, like he's given a platform.
He's giving the game away right now, but that's kind of funny.
To people who are much more based than the conservatives that are.
Yeah, he's saying it out loud. There you have it, everybody.
Freaking out at Joe Rogan. He may not consider himself to be a conservative or to be a part of the conservative movement, and that's fine.
That's fine.
He's still a net good for the culture and for conservatism. A significant
Yeah, he just laid it all out there. I'm definitely going to be clipping this and posting it.
net good. He might not be a conservative, but he's a friend to conservatives. And he's taken conservative positions that were extremely unpopular and pretty risky at the time that he took them. He did that with COVID, for example.
Trans people.
He
too.
started openly questioning the trans agenda years ago. I mean, he was criticizing the trans agenda before many conservatives were criticizing it. He's been a much more indispensable opponent of trans ideology, a much more effective opponent of trans ideology than like all of the conservatives criticizing him combined.
Wow, just saying it all out loud. Well, there you go. Hey, by the way, for all of the fucking weird-ass progressives who defended Joe Rogan for the longest time, being like, oh, he's not actually as transphobic as like the left makes out to be. He's simply someone who's concerned about sports. He's a sports guy. He wants to make sure sports are fair. That's what he cares about. Well, coming from the Transphobe of the Year winner, Matt Walsh, Christian fascist Matt Walsh, he's just saying the quiet part out loud, that Joe Rogan is very friendly to the far right, very friendly to far-right extremist ideology, very friendly to a lot of topics that a lot of other libertarians might not be, like, you know, too courageous to touch because they could be topics that are going to get you in trouble. Joe Rogan is your friend.
Okay? So here's the point. You don't turn on a guy who's been a huge asset to your movement, a guy who could continue to be a huge asset.
Thank you very much for the
and I'm not saying you have to agree with him. I'm not saying you can't criticize him. If you heard what he said about RFK Jr. and you were to come out and say, no, Joe's wrong on this one. Okay? I don't agree. RFK Jr. is bad. Here's why. That's fine. There's no problem with that.
Oh, I don't think you have to worry too much about deletion when it comes to Matt Walsh. I'm the guy who's been like, I've gone through his like 5 or 6 year old YouTube clips to find the really gross ones where he's talking about like, you know, high school kids impregnation and when they're ideally fertile shit. He doesn't delete them. Like, it's absolutely disgusting, and the shit that should revile, I would hope, most like Christian conservatives to hear a guy talk about high school kids this way, but he leaves them up. And then he just basically, whenever that shit comes out, he'll post a new video being like, I apologize for nothing, and you can all fuck yourselves. And then everyone's like, whoa, so epic, so amazing. The guy said 16 years old is the ideal impregnation fertility age range for young girls. Like, the fuck?
The point is not that you have to automatically agree with everything Rogan says or that you have to refrain from criticizing him or making any arguments against him. That's not the point. Go ahead and criticize him. Absolutely.
Dango Bangle with the 199. Joe Rogan being Tucker Light. What a twist, not. It's funny that Tucker, when he went on the internet, became Tucker Extreme, I guess. It's like all the stories he wasn't allowed to get through the producers at Fox, suddenly he doesn't have to worry. It's like, can I bring on the guy who says he knows what Obama's cum tastes like? I want that guy. I want to talk to him about sucking Obama off. Yeah. Let's see what he's got to say.
But to just completely trash the guy, I mean, to throw him to the side, to condemn him totally as nothing but a moron and a phony, et cetera, all because he said one thing you disagree with is asinine. It is strategic.
Are you going to take this Catturd? Are you going to take this line down? You know, or are you going to treat Matt Walsh the way you've treated your dogs and pets in the past? At the end of the day, he's talking a lot of shit about you right now. This is some pretty aggressive words, you know? I think that you should fire back. At the very least, you should be calling him all the words that come to mind. Gay, blonde woman, bimbo, low IQ, gay, super gay.
Strategically insane. Like, I'm not saying that it's mean and it hurts my feelings. It doesn't. I mean, I'm not the one getting attacked by, I mean, I do get attacked by these same people all the time. But in this case, it wasn't me. And I don't think it hurts Joe's feelings. Honestly, I don't think he really cares what these Twitter influencers are saying about him. I'm saying that strategically, it's just a very dumb move. It's stupid and petty and emotional. You're shooting yourself in the foot just to prove a point. And there's way too much of this kind of thing among certain right-wing influencers at the moment. These people they don't understand how to build and maintain an actual movement. They don't know how to wield influence, even though we call them influencers, how to form strategic alliances. And they don't know who we should be forming alliances with. They have no instinct for that at all. In fact, they seem to go really looking to destroy anyone who actually moves the needle. Because the litmus test for these people is just this. Are you currently saying something nice about Donald Trump? And if you're currently saying something nice about him, then you're great. You're a hero. You're our friend. You're our ally. We love you. You're our compatriot. If you aren't, then you're worthless. You're a piece of garbage. You're an idiot. We don't need you. Burn in hell, you sack of that is the...
Okay, so right now Matt is trying to build bridges and he's trying to do a big tent, and we need to stop him. So we need to fan the flames of this in any way we can. We need to get Catturd battling Matt Walsh. So we need to make Catturd aware that, poo has been flung in this case and that he has to respond in kind.
Attitude. And it's just crazy. It's crazy. Because there are plenty of people in the culture who may not always say nice stuff about Trump and yet could be very helpful to the movement overall. People who might not even like Trump all that much and yet can still be an enormous asset culturally.
Yeah, see, I don't want any of this. I want them all fighting each other and more.
Meanwhile, there are other people who may love Trump and yet have very little to offer. Because loving Trump alone cannot be the only thing that determines who we align ourselves with.
Also, why? Why can't you say you want to vote for the guy, or you like his policies, or you think he's an effective leader, and not be like, I love him? Like you love his policy? You love the way that he's governing? No, him. I love him. I'm in love with him. Tratty.
Right? Like if an abortion doctor who's currently an abortionist and has no plans in stopping, if they were to stand up and say, I love Trump, are we going to elevate that person and say that this person is our friend now? Like they currently are killing babies because they like Trump? I would hope not. But because of this kind of litmus test, what ends up happening is that you have these influencers who throw someone like Joe Rogan to the side while heaping praise on like some obscure rapper who nobody cares about and nobody likes and has no real fans and has no cultural influence.
And we're talking about Amber Heard. It's unusual that Matt keeps calling Amber Heard like a rapper, as if that's like her known career trajectory.
Garbage music, but they shouted MAGA at a concert once or whatever. So it's like you trade in the guy with massive cultural impact for somebody with none.
Sorry, Amber Rose. Yeah, Amber Rose. Yeah, so Matt was the person who was the most upset about Amber Rose appearing at the RNC, and he was making so many posts about it, like, this is a woman who was in the slut walk. We're allowing a slut to literally, like, walk among us, all this kind of shit like that. Like, he got so mad at her appearance. And then everyone else, he did the exact opposite of what he's saying that other people should be doing right now, essentially. It's like, do you want a big tent? Do you want to accept allies wherever they come from, especially ones that might appeal to other demographics that the right doesn't normally appeal to? Then you would just be like, yeah, you know what, I'm not totally down with the whole slut walk stuff, but at this point I do have to accept that this is a zero-sum game better for my Lord and Savior, my daddy, Donald Trump. So I got to do whatever I can to make sure Donald Trump gets elected. So I'm going to remain silent, even though I don't like her, even though I want to talk about it, even though I want to make a post about it, but I'm not going to, because I have to be silent on this case.
Because to you, the only thing that matters is just that one little bit. It's a bad strategy. That's not how you build and maintain a movement.
Not when he follows.
So the right thing to say to someone like Joe Rogan is, hey, you should vote for Donald Trump I think it's a huge mistake. And this is me talking now. I think it's a huge mistake to not vote for Donald Trump. Huge mistake. And we could talk about why. But like the fact that you don't agree on that point, you're not my enemy. Well, I mean, there are people out there who are enemies of our movement. Let's be very clear about that. Who hate our guts, who want us dead.
So he's basically gatekeeping, but being the decider of the gatekeeping. And because he's been on Joe Rogan's show, he's like, not Joe. No, don't go after Joe. Go after Amber Rose. She's a slut. She was in the slut walk. We hate her. We like Joe Rogan. He's a good man.
There are evil people who have evil positions and want to do evil things and are doing evil things. And they are enemies. But someone like Joe Rogan isn't. And so there's nothing wrong, again, with saying, hey, you're totally wrong about this. You're way off base. Like, you should be voting for Donald Trump. You don't vote for Donald Trump, you say whatever you want about third parties and whatever, and it's your vote, and you can do what you want with it. Of course, that's...
He circled around to the exact thing that he's trying to call out. He's like, just as long as you're voting for Donald Trump, right? Which he said he's going to do. But at the end of the day, that's all we need, is that you say that you're going to vote for Donald Trump. Which he said, which is okay. Except if Amber Rose does it. We don't want her, okay? She's bad. But in this case, Joe Rogan is good.
It's true. But in reality, like in the real world, there are only two candidates who matter. RFK Jr. is not going to win.
We'll see about that. I'm now going to volunteer for the RFK campaign.
They do it on the left. They do it on the right. They gaslight you. They manipulate you. They promote narratives. And the only one who's not doing that is Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
You a fan?
Yeah, I am
It's
a
true.
fan.
I've covered all the
he's
Flay
the only
shows
one that
today.
makes sense to me. He's the only one that he doesn't attack people. He attacks actions and ideas, but he's much more reasonable and intelligent.
The comments from Joe Rogan that you just listened to were interpreted by a lot of people as a soft endorsement of RFK Jr., and for good reason. You know, he's not explicitly endorsing him or saying that he's going to vote for him, but him saying that he's the only one who makes sense pretty heavily suggests that he will be voting for RFK Jr. But regardless of what Rogan meant, Trump and his supporters took it as an endorsement of RFK Jr., and an entire shitstorm ensued because of it. For example, here's what some of Trump's supporters said in response to that. Johnny MAGA tweeted, Joe Rogan will go down as a guy who had a real opportunity to make a meaningful impact and squandered it. Sad. This person says, Joe Rogan thinks RFK Jr. is the only candidate that makes sense to him. Tell me how the F a man that wants to allow full-term abortions makes sense to anyone. Now, Catturd chimed in, and here's where it got real serious. And he made this viral tweet, quote, so I've never been a Joe Rogan fan, can't stand him. Yes, he has a popular podcast.
Oh my God. The U.S. approves a $20 billion weapons sale to Israel that just broke. Are you serious? $20 billion? Oh my God. 20 billion. Wow. Wow. The U.S. has approved a $20 billion arms sale to Israel, including scores of fighter jets, advanced air-to-air missiles, the State Department announced on Tuesday. Congress was notified of the impending sale, which includes more than 50 F-15 fighter jets, advanced minimum range air-to-air missiles, or AMRAAMs, 120mm tank ammunition, high-explosive mortars, and tactical vehicles that comes at a time of intense concern, that's putting it lightly, that Israel may be involved in a wider Middle East war. However, the weapons are not expected to get to Israel anytime soon. Don't worry, everybody. It's totally fine. They're in contracts that will take years to fulfill. Much of what is being sold is to help Israel increase its military capability in the long term, make sure they're nice and set for the future. The United States is committed to the security of Israel, and it is vital to U.S. national interests to assist Israel to develop and maintain a strong and ready self-defense capability. This proposed sale is consistent with those objectives. The Biden administration has had to balance its continued support for Israel with the growing number of calls from lawmakers and U.S. public to curb military support there due to the high number of civilian deaths. Again, putting it very, very lightly, AP. It has curbed one delivery, of 2,000-pound weapons amid continued airstrikes, so good job. But the rest of the bombs are allowed to go through. $20 billion. Sorry that you don't have health care, America. There's bigger priorities on the table.
He's great at figuring things out 2 years after we do. What a legend. So did it surprise me when he endorsed?
And then, yeah, this is also coming at the anniversary of the 75th anniversary, I think, of the Geneva Convention, which, yeah.
Idiot RFK Jr. today? LOL, no. We are talking about the same fucking idiot who endorsed Bernie Sanders, right? He's the podcast equivalent of a dumb blonde joke. He also tweeted out a poll asking who has the gayest, low IQ, dumb male blonde joke political infant podcast in the world. And the only two options, as you can see, are Joe Rogan. Got him. By the way, I believe that
Haaretz reports Israeli army used Palestinian civilians to inspect potentially booby-trapped tunnels in Gaza, use them as human shields. I was told that's a bad thing, that there's something people need to look out for. So, yeah.
Catturd is actually in his 50s.
In the past 5 days, the IDF shoots American. The U.S. says it will fund the unit that killed Palestinian American. U.S. sends Israel $3.5 billion to buy weapons and $260 million of smart arms. IDF bombs a school, kills 100, majority children. IDF kills newborns, moms, grandma. IDF kills a father of 2 who just had twins, who was getting the twins' birth certificates when he found out that his twins had been bombed to death alongside his wife. And then the U.S. celebrates the Geneva Convention and then approves $20 billion in arms sales.
Or 60s, just FYI. So
again, just absolute wow. Dango Bango, what about my right to defend myself? Agreed. Nick Mower, I want a law that says anyone who signs these massive arms deals is banned from using how expensive public services are as a reason not to fund them. That would be amazing if there was some correlation, or if there was some way to be like, hey, by the way, if you were sending billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars to countries engaged in genocide, then you shouldn't be allowed to use roads. Just anything like that. You don't get to use roads anymore.
Kind of tells you the mentality about.
And I know that's going to be easily ripped apart. Like, I can already hear the liberals sharing that clip and being like, "This is not how the budget works, Lance. There's a difference between discretionary spending and..." It's like, yeah, but like at the end of the day, you have to realize that if you are an American taxpayer, you do pay a set amount of money of your salary into taxes, sometimes a lot of it, by the way. And if you're spending thousands of dollars of your hard-earned cash on taxes, you want things in return for them. That simple concept shouldn't be beyond the pale, right? That you spend money in taxes, and then you get stuff. The government will do some stuff for you. You will get some roads, and then you might get some, investment in Social Security, some other stuff like that. And there will be discretionary spending on, yes, your military and your military budget. I personally would like to see the military budget, dramatically reduced in America, but I can't control that. That's up to Americans to do. But at the end of the day, I think it's completely within Americans' right to get fucking furious and frustrated when they see shit like that. When you see like, hey, by the way, we're sending another $20 billion, $20 billion. Like, it's just like, these numbers are astonishing, absolutely astonishing to me. The entire Canadian military budget for the entire year for all of Canada's military is somewhere like $27 billion. That's it. That's all of Canada's military. That's our entire. I know we have a small military in comparison to other countries. Absolutely, that's true. But still, like these numbers should also be jaw-dropping to American citizens who fund this. This is your taxes being spent on it. Hanny got a fanny. Thank you very much for the prime. Awesome name too.
This individual, based on his tweets, very, very immature for his age. But he was once again in his feelings in the same way that he was in his feelings after Kyle Rittenhouse temporarily said that he wouldn't be voting for Donald Trump. But those attacks on people for perceived disloyalty, that is what is extremely culty about MAGA world. But if you want Trump to win, I understand why losing Rogan would be disappointing to a sycophant like Catturd. He has the largest podcast in the world, and his audience, I would imagine, is disproportionately right-leaning. So if he gets...
There's no profit in that. The U.S. State Department has approved the sale of $20 billion in weapons to Israel, including the F-18 missiles, tank, and mortar cartridges, blah, blah, blah. This is after sending them $3.5 billion in order to pay for weaponry as well. Yeah, I mean, it seems to be kind of like a circular logic thing, right? So this is a weapon sale. So this is an approved sale of $20 billion worth of weapons to Israel. So that is true. That's not directly going to come out. Well, I mean, the cost of the manufacturing, the upfront cost will come down to the taxpayer for the military-industrial complex to build them. But that's not going to be, this is a weapons sale, not simply a weapons transfer. So that part is true. But that comes after the heels of a $3.5 billion military transfer of funds to buy military equipment to Israel. So that directly does come from taxpayers. That is directly, hey, you pay X amount of money in taxes, that a percentage of that is now going towards the $3.5 billion that can be used by Israel to buy weapons. And those weapons can include weapons bought by the United States, the world's largest arms dealer. So it does kind of seem like just like an endless circle of death.
Gets them to support RFK Jr. over Donald Trump, that could actually hurt him, especially in states where it's going to be.
Oh, yeah. If you own fucking Raytheon stock right now, you are doing good.
Pretty close. But what's funny about all of this is that people dug up these old tweets from Catturd, and he was singing a completely different tune about Rogan when Rogan was saying things that Catturd happened to like. For example, back in 2022, during Rogan's anti-vax arc, Catturd tweeted out, "The left crying about Joe Rogan 24/7 is making him 1,000 times more popular." He also says, "Dear leftists, Joe Rogan can say anything he wants on his podcast, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it but cry." So ironic. So I'm assuming that he's, not going to keep that same energy for Trump supporters who are now crying because of this supposed endorsement of RFK Jr. It will be interesting to see how loudly Joe Rogan gets booed the next time he enters the UFC ring. MAGA 2024. Yeah, so very petty, but also very on brand for Donald Trump. So you're only getting a small glimpse at the hysteria over Rogan's perceived endorsement of RFK Jr. over Trump. But what makes the situation even more interesting is that a lot of prominent Trump supporters,
Yanni Mays, Michael Reich, thank you very much for both of you for the incredibly generous donos. Very, very kind of you.
like Matt Walsh and Tim Pool, they were put in a very awkward position because of this. Because even though they support Donald Trump vocally, they're also personally friendly with Rogan, and they want to make sure that they don't piss him off, so that way he'll continue to invite them on his podcast. I mean, that is a platform with millions and millions of viewers, so you don't want to burn that bridge. The question is, how exactly did they respond to all of this? How did they, thread that needle, if you will? Well, we'll get to Tim Pool and Matt Walsh, but first let's talk about fascist influencer The Quartering, who shared a video of himself to Twitter urging the anti-Rogan bedwetters to just calm down.
Real quick on all this dumb infighting and melting down. First it was Kyle Rittenhouse, now it's Joe Rogan. Look, Joe Rogan endorsed Bernie Sanders in 2016 and Trump won easily. Has everybody who is one of these mega influencers completely forgot about 2016 and how every poll had Hillary ahead until the very end? Has everybody forgot how Cory Bush had 1 million Twitter followers and got beat by a relative nobody with 10,000 Twitter followers? Twitter is not real life. It's getting really cringe seeing so many of these quote unquote mega influencers melt down and react emotionally to what is obviously a Kamala psyop. These
psyop
images that get out that many people are saying are AI. The fact that she had a concert in a wildly popular band's hometown, and it was a free concert of Bon Iver in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, their hometown. Everyone's like, "Oh my God, the Kamala phenomenon is real. Trump needs to fire his campaign manager. Oh my God." Holy crap. I'm getting real tired, a lot of these mega influencers that are suddenly now doom pilling, because the point of the Kamala psyop is exactly this, and you're falling for it. Okay, I'm not going to call anyone out by name because, it's not helpful. The fact is,
just wait till he gets drunk later. Then we'll get all the deets.
All these huge crowds and all these polls that are coming out, they have one goal, and that's to make you panic and make you demoralized and make you give up. And you guys are falling for it. It's so obvious. How can you not see this? Stop tweeting about how, oh my God, the polls, Trump's got to make a major change. No, he doesn't.
Totally agree, Mr. Quivering. I think that Trump should continue to conspiracy monger about whether or not Kamala Harris is actually black and ask questions about whether or not her crowds are AI generated, because I can assure you that that's exactly what voters care about, and the polls are definitely fake. So don't trust them and just assume that everything is copacetic and Trump has the winning strategy. Very smart. Now, obviously, putting aside my sarcasm, he doesn't think that the hysteria over Rogan seemingly endorsing RFK Jr. is necessary. And if I were a Trump supporter, I would agree with him, because it makes them look unserious, although that's not something they really seem to care about that often. But still, he's not alone, because self-proclaimed theocratic fascist Matt Walsh also put out the same sentiment in a lengthy statement defending Joe Rogan, arguing Joe Rogan is one of the most powerful cultural forces in America, and he is, at a minimum, very friendly to conservatives. He has repeatedly used his massive platform to amplify right-wing voices that would not be able to find that kind of audience anywhere else. He is a tremendous net good for the culture and for the conservative movement, even if he doesn't consider himself to be a part of the movement. The right-wing accounts attacking him and disowning him today for saying nice things about RFK Jr. are acting foolishly at best. You don't turn on a guy who has been, is, and could continue to be a huge asset to you and your movement just because he didn't endorse Trump. That is strategically insane, petty, stupid, overly emotional, shooting yourself in the foot just to prove a point. There's way too much of this kind of shit among certain right-wing influencers at the moment. These specific people have no idea how to build and maintain an actual movement, no idea who the real power players are, no idea how to wield influence. They just tweet Republican boomer bait all day. He's talking about Catturd here, I assume, nonstop, and then turn and try unsuccessfully most of the time to destroy anyone who actually moves the needle. Now, Tim Pool seemingly agreed with that sentiment, writing on Twitter, "The cringiest thing imaginable right now is MAGA diehard shitting on Joe Rogan, make more enemies, burn more bridges." Now, Catturd very clearly felt called out by that and responded to Tim Pool saying, "The cringiest thing imaginable right now is the podcast bros, diehard fence riders, simping for Bernie bro Joe Rogan, who literally just endorsed weirdo RFK Jr. and refuses to interview Trump and pretend he's somehow on our side." Speaking of burning bridges, now Tim Pool actually hit back at Catturd saying, "I think Trump is on track to lose, and this is why. Dems are a cult, that's ironic, will march in lockstep. MAGA diehards can't form alliances properly. Independents and post-libs will say fuck that. Registered Democrats outnumber GOP by almost 12 million. He then added, "There's a reason they can't get a Rogan endorsement, and it's exactly this behavior. The top podcast, markedly independent, fair and honest, and they decide to go to war with it instead of trying to ally with it." Inject this straight into my veins.
Agreed.
Now, up until this point, you see intra-party warfare, catty back and forths, and as enjoyable as all of this is, it all culminated in one of the most hilarious things that has ever happened. So, to prove his point after getting into a heated back and forth with Catturd, the esteemed, intellectual on the right, Tim Pool decided to, I guess, throw his hands up and say, you know what? I'm voting for RFK Jr. now. He tweeted that out. But here's the thing. He didn't really mean it. He was just saying that to make
What? He just tweets out random shit? Oh.
Mad. But the problem is that not everyone took it as a joke, including RFK Jr., who responded to Tim's fake
I forgot about that. Is this a real thing that happened?
endorsement saying, "I'm so grateful to you, Tim,
And then Tim had to do a whole I was just trolling, but respect for you.
for your confidence in me, but most of all, for your steadfast defense of the Constitution and relentless love for our country." Yeah, so this is a little bit awkward to say the least. How do I all of a sudden love American politics? So Tim Pool had to smooth things over, but he didn't really know how. So he tweeted out, "Oof, I really stepped in it this time. Haha, holy crap, I'm voting for Trump. WTF." RFK Jr. then responded to that, saying, "There's plenty of time to change your mind. You know where to find me. I'll be working to unite America." Yeah, so this entire situation is painfully cringeworthy. It's funny, but it's also cringeworthy, and I genuinely don't know who I feel more embarrassed for, because Tim Pool, on one hand, shouldn't have expected people to automatically assume that he was joking, because you wouldn't know that he was joking unless you tune into his show and see that he endlessly glazes up Donald Trump and is generally sycophantic. So it's pretty cringeworthy of him to think that he's so famous that people aren't just familiar with him, but they also know about his sense of humor, right? But it might be more embarrassing, honestly, for RFK Jr., because this man is a presidential candidate, and here he is praising a podcaster, a far-right podcaster at that, because he thought that he got endorsed by him when this endorsement shouldn't matter. And if anything, you should be distancing yourself from somebody that divisive if you're serious about uniting America, right? But RFK, he's a charlatan. And the latest episode of Last Week Tonight with John Oliver explains why he really shouldn't be taken seriously by anyone. Having said that, though, his presence in this race is good because it's driving a wedge between Trump supporters and the more
Yes.
anti-vax wing of the Republican Party. People who are right-leaning but obsessed with vaccines, they're opting for RFK Jr., whereas they would probably opt for Trump instead. So, you know, if he's playing spoiler to Donald Trump, I'm here for it. But after endless crying and arguing and pan-shitting and all this hysteria on the right, guess what happened?
Pan-shitting.
Joe Rogan, much like Kyle Rittenhouse, couldn't handle the heat. He couldn't handle not being in the good graces of MAGA, so he took to Twitter to clarify that he did not actually endorse RFK Jr. over Trump. And he explains, quote, "For the record, this isn't an endorsement. This is me saying that I like RFK Jr. as a person, and I really appreciate the way he discusses things with civility and intelligence. I think we could use more of that in this world. I also think Trump raising his fist and saying fight after getting shot is one of the most American fucking things of all time. I'm not the guy to get political information from. If you want that from a comic, go to Comic Dave Smith. He actually knows what he's talking about." Well, you heard.
You can't keep doing that. You can't keep just being like, well, I'm a comedian. You can't take anything I say seriously. I smoke weed. I drink. Like, everything I say is a joke. And it's like, you have the world's largest podcast, sir. You know, I consider myself a comedian as well, but I still think that I have a responsibility based on the things I say to actually, like, if people call you out on your shit, then obviously, yeah, that's something you have to listen to. And in this case, people called you out on your shit and you listened. You just don't do it for anything that matters.
Straight from the horse's mouth, folks. Joe Rogan says that Joe Rogan is stupid and you shouldn't take him seriously. Okay, duly noted. But I've just got to say, what a fucking cuck. This is cuck behavior. Just like Kyle Rittenhouse, he fell in line. And look, I get it, right? It's embarrassing, but I get it. At the end of the day, these people just care about one thing and one thing only, the bottom line.
Hey, if you'd like to unlock secret bonus episodes as well as uncensored content, go to patreon.com/the Serfs. This show is produced by Anna Loves Riley, Arian McCarthy, Cheryl Alvarez, Comrade Junkie, Doug Caddy, Everything Important, Hagbard Celine, Jimmy Sombrero, Multimondi, Omni, Political Puppy, Preston Kroll, Quiet 185, Riley and Anna, Roller Dragon, Cernicus, Stellar Gwyn, Sebastian Demel, Travis McClinton, Trincell, Words Greenwood, with additional support coming from all of these amazing human beings right here.